My name is Juan Lecaros, and the name of my store is Comic and Figure Addicts. I was a school teacher beforehand, and just with the economy the way it is, I was getting my hours cut, and eventually led to a layoff. In the back of my mind, I always wanted to open a store like this. Probably not age 30, more like maybe age 50, 60 years old, after I retire as a hobby. But like I said, with the economy the way it was going, my hours were getting cut. Eventually it led to a layoff. I just looked, hey, could I do it? Could I afford to open a store? Why not now rather than later? And I looked into it and I was able to, so I went for it. I really wanted to do it without having to borrow money from a bank, get a loan. I thought it would be a lot easier if I just used my savings. That way, hey, knock on wood, it doesn't happen. But if I go bust, I'm losing my own hard-earned money, and I don't have to worry about owing anybody else any money. So yeah, we're definitely more than just a comic store. We carry a lot of action figures as well. To me, the action figures and comics kind of go hand in hand. You read a comic book and then you want to act it out, or you want a representation of something that's on paper, whether it be a statue like the ones behind me or an action figure, something that you can display somewhere else, and it's off the page and you just don't carry a comic around all the time. We have prints, art prints, stuff like that. I carry a lot of Kid Robot designer vinyl figures, movie posters, Hot Wheels. So definitely, especially coming Christmas time, those hard to get toys, we'll definitely be getting a lot of those. Also, if there's anybody that needs something that's not necessarily in the store, I can always special order it, or I'm always toy hunting all the time, so I'll keep an eye out, and I'm always willing to help anybody out. In the future of the store, or in my future, like I said, I started off doing eBay, then doing toy shows and conventions and things like that, and the next step was opening my own shop. So people have asked me, like, oh, you have your own shop, what are you planning? I'm like, well, maybe in a year or two after the shop's established, if it's doing well and continuing. To me, the next step would be putting on, like, not necessarily the size of WonderCon, but a small, toy show / comic book show. Start doing shows like that. That would probably be my next step. I love reading comic books. My dad would buy me comic books ever since before I could even read. I would just look at the pictures and stuff like that. Growing up, I love Spider-Man. Spider-Man's always been my favorite character. Now, of course, adult, I still read Spider-Man, but books like The Walking Dead, Invincible, Robert Kirkman to me is probably one of the better writers out there right now, and I just love those books. I got into the comics too because of the art. One of the reasons that before I even became a teacher, I wanted to be a comic book artist. And one of the people that influenced me the most was Todd McFarlane. Reading Amazing Spider-Man, his whole run, and then when he moved over to Spider-Man and eventually Spawn, I don't know, his art just always attracted me, and I would sit there just picking out one of his pictures and drawing them myself, and that's how I learned how to draw. And I went to Chabot and I got an illustration degree and stuff like that. Self-esteem kicked in and I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, and I became a teacher. But that's just some of the things that I get out of comic books. And honestly, just reading about them, the toys, and the new people that I meet, just in line at Toys R Us, in line, at a midnight release, and just chatting it up for hours, even though I've never seen this person ever, and I might not even ever see them again, ever again. But you know what? We sit there, we find a common bond, and just chat it up for an hour about, comic books, games, toys, and everything. So I'd say, like, also one of the major things that it's brought me is, like, new friendships and relationships. the way I relate to comics and what I get out of comics, I mean, you read storylines, you know. Like I mentioned before, Spider-Man was always my favorite characters, and one of the reasons he's, you know, one of the beloved characters out there is because so many people can relate to him. You know, his hardships, always being broke, girl trouble, this and that, you know. Aunt May's dying every other issue, and you know, so stuff like that. That's what kind of draws you in, that you can see parallels between your life and the characters on the page and stuff like that. We're opening this Saturday, a soft opening. Grand opening is November 5th. We're gonna have a big sale, so come check us out. Hopefully, we'll make this your favorite comic book store.